here. And I'm doing this because I think I'm going to have to lower the section where the wood will eventually get placed. If I put it in right now, it won't be at the correct depth for the cross section that I want from the pencils. Alright, well, as you can see, the epoxy on that last pour ended up getting pretty hot and well, pretty much melted the foam, so that idea didn't work out too well. It's also got a few cracks in the epoxy, but it's alright because I plan on taking off the top inch or so of this slab. So the first step here is to grind all of the protruding pencils off the top so that I can take this over to my router sled jig. I've showed my router sled jigs in my other videos, but the way it works is the router sits in this track and moves back and forth to give a level cut to whatever's beneath it. I usually will use a pretty large mortising bit for this, like a 1 or 1.5 inch bit, and this is obviously my favorite part of any guitar build. Alright, well, that's about 3 hours or so of routing, and I've finally got a pretty decent slab. It's a bit thinner than I wanted, but I had to keep grinding off layers until I got to the cross section that I want, which is about right here. I've also decided to just go without the piece of wood inserted into the body, and I'm just going to leave the resin instead. So next up is to draw out the shape of the guitar and then get it cut out on the bandsaw. Got the body roughly cut out. Now I'm going to use this oscillating belt sander to shape the body to get it where I want it. This sander is probably one of the pieces of equipment that I use most during any guitar build. So I cut out a neck pocket template out of a scrap piece of MDF. Now I'm just going to take the router with a short template bit on it and slowly take out material to form the neck pocket. I'm also going to do the pickup cavities right now. So this is a 1/2 inch roundover bit, and the trick to this is to make sure you're always aware of the direction the bit is spinning. It's super important to move the workpiece against the direction of the rotation. If you were to move it in the same direction as the bit can grab the workpiece and send it flying like a pitching machine. Alright, gonna get started on making the neck now. This is a pretty nice piece of cherry that I actually found at Home Depot, and it's got some pretty cool random figure throughout it, but I think it will make a pretty good looking neck. I've got this double action truss rod to accompany it. I know in my last video I got a lot of comments asking why I didn't put a truss rod in the neck, and I did, I just didn't film any video of me placing it in. So I've got a little straight bit in the router table, and I've got this piece of wood clamped to the table on the side. On the end of my neck blink, I've marked the depth that I need for the truss rod. All I'll do is ride the neck blink along this piece of wood, which will give me a nice straight channel to place the truss rod. Here's a nice ebony fingerboard that I'm going to glue onto the neck now. I'll get the truss rod installed, and then I'll get to gluing the fingerboard on. So I've got another little router jig. This one is used to thin out the headstock a bit. Basically the router just sits on it and the entire jig slides around at a fixed cutting height. On this guitar, I want to try using colored pencils as the fret markers, and I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work out, so I'm going to give it a shot. So pencil guitars can be really heavy, which is why on this one I'm going to try routing out 2 big cavities in the back. I cut out these 2 templates from MDF and I'll use them as guides for the template bits. A buddy of mine let me bring over this old Delta drill press, and this thing's really old, but it should still get the job done. So I've got a 1-inch Forstner bit in there right now, and I'm just going to hog out the bulk of the material from these cavities before I route them. Routers are good to use for cleanup work, but the drill press is really a much better option for removing bulk material. I think the marble effect in the resin is really cool, but I'm not all that stoked on these random pencils that are here in the middle section. I wish there was some more uniformity. So I think what I'm going to try doing is painting a couple of red, green, and yellow stripes to cover up those pencils. I'm going to try a different technique for finishing on this guitar. This perimeter is made of corrugated plastic and it surrounds the guitar body, leaving roughly a ½ inch around the entire perimeter. So what I'm going to do is take some thick set epoxy and do a flood coat so that the body will essentially be casted in resin. It's why I've also got these cavities filled up with clay so that they don't get filled in by the resin. And then I've got these sticks here so that I can place a weight on top of it so that the body doesn't float in the resin. I'm not totally sure how this is going to work, but I figured it'd be worth a shot, and if it does work out, it'll leave a nice thick finish. Alright, the top is cured, and I just flipped it over and cut out the pink foam, and now I've got a nice little lip covering the entire bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact thing to this side as I did to the top. I thought I'd be able to just rip off the plastic from the sides, but the resin kind of cured to the foam, so it's making it difficult just to rip off. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it the less gentle way and grind through it all. Now I've got the edges rounded over and I've got to reroute the cavities again. All I'm using is a bottom bearing template bit, and it's only cutting 1/8 of an inch or so of resin, so this should be pretty quick. Then a bit more sanding, some polishing, and I'll get everything installed.